We want probably, this is a really optional for depending on your caloric needs. But for most people, 2 or more servings of whole grains and or starchy vegetables. And these are the foods that you adjust based on your energy needs. So once you've consumed the 10 servings or more of veggies and fruits, and the 3 serving of legumes, and your 1 serving or 2 of nuts and seeds, and all of those things, then you add in these more energy-dense foods to make up for, or to get to where you need to be in terms of your caloric needs. Whole grains, we know, can lower diabetes risk, particularly relative to refined grains. There was a 2018 study that reported for every half-ounce serving of whole grains, diabetes risk was reduced by 11% for men and 7% for women. And what about potatoes? Well, there was a 2016 meta-analysis of 5 studies showing no association or decreased risk with potato intake. 2 studies that showed increased risk, but 3 out of 3 studies showing French fries increased risk. No big surprise there. So the practical pointers here, we want people to be selecting colorful starchy vegetables prepared without added fat, selecting the lower GI options, and selecting mostly intact whole grains, because all whole grains are not created equal. A granola bar does not equal a bowl of old-fashioned oatmeal, and a box of Kamut flakes does not equal a Kamut berry salad. The reality is, even once you've eliminated all refined grains, you're not eating any white flour, white rice, or any of the products made with that stuff. You're just eating whole grains, stone ground, whole wheat, whatever. There is still a hierarchy within that group of whole grains, and at the top of the hierarchy, the best of the best are intact whole grains, pretty much as they're picked off the plant without, you're not adding anything that damages health, you're not taking away anything that is of benefit to health. And so you're eating them as they are, with everything there. And make them, if you want to make them even one step better, sprout them and watch the vitamin C increase and the anti-nutrients decrease and things get more absorbable and so forth. So that's something you can do. Next would be cut whole grains. All you've done is cut them, like steel cut oats, for example, and bulgur. Then would be the rolled whole grains, like rolled oats. And then the shredded whole grains, like shredded wheat. And then the ground whole grains, like whole wheat flour products. And then the flaked whole grains, like flaked cereals. And at the bottom of the barrel, you've got puffed whole grains, like brown rice cakes or puffed brown rice. So these are still whole grains, but they're puffed. So why are we, saying they're getting worse and worse? Well, as you go down this list, you're increasing the surface area of the grain and making it more absorbable. It is more quickly absorbed. And so you're increasing the glycemic impact, but also you're reducing the nutritional value because the amount of processing required is increased. Okay, so you're exposing that grain to air and light and all of those things. And so you want to stay, if you have diabetes, fairly close to the top of that list with more of the intact grains. So unprocessed, intact, sprouted grains, or plain starchy vegetables like yams. Minimally processed would be cut or rolled or shredded grains, or frozen or mashed starchy vegetables. Moderately processed would be like flaked or puffed whole grains, or whole grain flour products. Starchy vegetables with added fat and salt. And you want to completely avoid highly processed whole grains like refined grains or whole grain snack foods with added fat, sugar, and salt. Nuts and seeds, 1 serving a day or more for some people if you can afford more calories. But this is where a lot of your essential fatty acids reside. Now, nuts, we don't have a lot of studies on seeds, but there's a study on nuts showing that when fully adjusted, diabetes risk was cut in half for those consuming 4 or more servings of nuts a week compared to those consuming less than 1. Practical pointers, and we do have studies on seeds as well, especially chia and flax seeds, showing some reduction as well. One of the very interesting thing about nuts and seeds is they all offer something a little different. And so I think it's important to have variety. So for example, chia, flax, and hemp seeds and walnuts are our key sources of omega-3s. Almonds and sunflower seeds are the highest in vitamin E. Almonds, chia seeds, poppy, and sesame seeds are loaded with calcium. Iron is highest in cashews and seeds, and you get the idea. So as you go down the list, even hazelnuts are highest in manganese, and Brazil nuts in selenium, and so forth. So having the variety is really wonderful. But you need to keep portions moderate, because nuts have about 600 to 800 calories per cup. And so you don't want to be eating them by the bowlful. What I do is I keep a nice bowl of nuts in the shell on my kitchen counter. And so if I want nuts, I have a walnut. You know, I have 1 or 2 at most. And so that, to me, it helps you limit your intake when you're eating them from the shell. And I also, one of the things I do is I keep a mix of seeds, chia, flax, hemp, pumpkin, in a container together with chopped Brazil nuts. And that goes on my breakfast bowl. So I get that variety and I get the selenium thrown in there as well. I keep it in a mason jar in the freezer. So again, you're wanting unprocessed or minimally processed choices. Nuts or seeds in the shell, raw or shelled nuts or seeds, soaked or sprouted nuts or seeds. Minimally processed, like dry roasted. Moderately processed would be those with a little bit of added oil or salt. Nut seed butters with added salt, for example. And highly processed are the nuts and seeds that are coated in sugar or chocolate. So we need to avoid those. And herbs and spices are the one group that people forget about. And we should not, because they have more phytochemicals and antioxidant per gram than any other food. They're just loaded. So you want to be having, including them at every meal if you can. And we have a number of studies showing that herbs and spices help fight diabetes. And particularly things like cumin and turmeric and ginger and garlic. So a lot of evidence there. And the practical pointers are just to incorporate them at every meal, even breakfast. You can put allspice, you can put cinnamon. If you're doing I sometimes do a little Indian lentil dish for breakfast, and then you can put turmeric and cumin and all of those things in. But add them at every meal. You can drink spice or herb-infused teas, add fresh herbs to salads. There are lots of ways of getting them in.